What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel. Now normally on Thursdays I would do a WWE news video, but I figured, you know what, let's switch it up a bit. So for today's video I have a deck profile for you guys today. It is a Neos deck profile. Yes, Neos, as an Elemental Hero Neos. So what's cool about this deck is that you're mostly gonna want to go after the mass heroes, and you're also gonna want to end with having brave Neos on the field, as well as somebody texting me. As well as having rainbow Neos on the field. Not only that, but you're also But you also have a pretty good amount of disruptions, especially with the cards that are in the side deck as well. So I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get straight into it. First up, we have 3 copies of Elemental Hero Neos. This is obviously the main card that you need if you want to summon cards. Cards like Brave Neos, Grand Neos, Dark Neos, Air Neos. Obviously Absolute Zero if you were playing, if you can do it. Storm Neos, Nebula Neos, Chaos Neos. Pretty much a lot of these require Neos to you need to have Neos to summon most of these fusions. So you gotta have Neos. Next up, we have the 1 copy of Rainbow Dragon. This is probably the brick of probably the brick of the deck, because you need to have, because if you see Rainbow Dragon in your opening hand, you're gonna end up bricking, and you're not gonna be able to combo off with Rainbow Dragon just sitting in your hand. So that's why you want to try and not see this in your opening hand as much as possible. But however, if you open up with Rainbow Dragon and, like, let's say Neos Fusion, then you know what? Yeah, then you know what? It's not that much of a break, but it's still pretty much considered a break at this point. But Neos and Rainbow Dragon, you get Rainbow Neos. Not much else to say about that. Next up, we have the 1 copy of Elemental Hero Honest Neos. This is basically your Honest of the deck. So if you guys don't know what this card does, the card reads as a quick effect. You can discard this card, then target 1 hero monster on the field. It gains 2,500 attack until the end of the turn. And the second effect, which is also a quick effect, you can discard 1 hero monster. This card gains attack equal to the discarded monster's attack until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. Obviously, you're not going to be summoning Honest Neos to the field, unless if you were to revive it with something like Monster Reborn, which I was planning on putting into the deck, but I may end up, you know what, I'm actually going to take out the terraforming that I had initially in the deck, and I'm going to replace it with Monster Reborn. And the reason why I decided to take out the terraforming was because of the fact that with Brave Neos, you're pretty much golden. It could be a terraforming to get out Neo space, but I'll explain that situation here in a second. But with Honest Neos, you're only using this card for its first effect, which is obviously the Honest effect, where any hero monster you have on the field gains 2,500 attack, which that's a pretty big attack when you're going for game. So you mainly want to use this as as a way to go for game. But if it's your opponent's turn and they're attacking with a big beater, this card could also help you out. And then for the 4-star Elemental Heroes, we have Elemental Heroes Stratos. This is basically a Rhoda. It's either a Rhoda, it can be a Rhoda or a Heavy Storm, or rather a Harpy's a um, or a heavy storm, basically. So, but you're mainly using it to add hero monsters from your deck straight to your hand. A lot of people can with a deck like Neo's. A lot of people can consider to play it as a 3 of, but the thing is, you don't need all that much search power because you already have the search power in the form of of Vision Hero Vion, Neospace Connector, Brave Neos. You don't need all that much search power, so that's why it's a 2 of. Next up is the one copy of Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier. If you guys don't know what this card does, this was released in Legendary Duelist Magical Hero, and we're getting this. I know we'll be getting this probably in Legendary Duelist Season 3, which will feature, I think it's the last 2 sets. I think it's Magical Hero and Immortal Destiny, which I'm hoping they print the Earthbound Immortals as ultra rares. That would be awesome. But Liquid Soldier says, when this card is normal summon, you can target one level 4 or lower hero monster in your grave, except this card, special summon it. So it's basically another form. It's basically another form of Monster Reborn, basically. If this card is used as fusion material for a hero monster and sent to the graveyard or banished, you can draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card. You can only use the effect of use 1 effect once per turn and only once per turn. So that's why it's a 1 of. It's because it's a hard one once per turn. Plus with this, you're mainly using Liquid Soldier to summon cards, monsters like Master Hero Acid or even also Absolute Zero. But you're mainly going to use it to summon Absolute Zero because you can use Neospatian Aqua Dolphin to summon Master Hero Acid, but you're wondering how's that possible? I'll be showcasing to you guys that once I get to the spells. Next up, we have the one copy of Solid Soldier. Basically, it's just another way to spell. It's basically a Sidra. So when you normal summon this card, you can special summon a level 4 or lower hero from your hand. So you can summon Shadow Mist and get out Match Change, and then use Match Change's effect. Target the Solid Soldier. Summon Master Hero Diane. Solid Soldier's effect would activate, and then you would be able to special summon. You would be able to special summon another hero, another hero from your graveyard straight to the field, which you can even also go in. You can do Stratos if Stratos is in your graveyard. Get another search. There are so many different ways you can do. There are so many different routes you can go with a card like Solid Soldier, and the craziest part, you can actually use both effects in the same turn, which is absolutely crazy. And then of course, Shadow Mist, 2 copies of Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. I thought it's basically a search. So when you special summon this card, you can add a change quick play spell from your deck to your hand, and if it's sent to the graveyard by any means, whether it's by battle, by a card effect, or by way of a fusion or whatever, or a link, you basically can summon. You can add a hero from your deck to your hand except Shadow Mist. So basically, it's another form of Stratos, basically. And then of course, the one copy of Vision Hero Vion. I know some people prefer to play it at 3. I prefer to put this at 1 because you really don't need to. Because if you put this at 3, you're most likely going to end up bricking. You're going to end up bricking because there are so many different cards that you can use to to Foolish Burial your hero monster, your monsters, like the 2 copies of Neospace Connector, which I'll talk about here in a second. But again, this is better in this build because this is a 45 build. It's more so of a 1-of. So So this card says, if this card is normal or special summon, you can send one hero monster from your deck to the graveyard. You're going to use this effect once per turn. Once per turn, you can banish a hero monster from your grave, add a polymerization from your deck to your hand. So this card can easily be recycled off of the effects of of something like Monster Reborn, Liquid Soul, Liquid Soldier, and even also Solid Soldier as well. So that's why you only need one. And then of course the 2 copies of Neospace Connector. This is basically another. This is basically a card that helps you go into your Neos fusions. So it says when this card is normal summon, you can special summon a Neospatian monster or one elemental hero Neos from your hand or deck in defense position. You contribute, and then the second effect says you contribute this card, then target one Neospatian monster or one elemental hero Neos in your grave, special summon in defense. You can only use each effect once per turn. So basically, it's a when this card is normal summon, you can not only can you Cyber Dragon your Neospatians or Neos, but but in the same turn, if you opened with, let's say, Neospace Connector, Neos, I'll say Neospace, and let's say just a couple other random cards, you can go Neospace Connector, activate Connector's effect, special summon the Neos, and then you're able to basically just go off and summon one of your fusions, which is really broken, pretty good, really awesome card. Again with some Neos decks, a lot of people put it at 3. It's better off at 2 because the last of the monsters that I have in this deck are actually the Neospatians, and they're only 1/1/0s because you have cards like Cosmo Neos, you have Chaos Neos, just to name off a few of them. So yeah, again, you only need one in this deck. So we have the 1 copy of Dark Panther. This card basically just can pretty much copy the effects and the name of pretty much any monster that your opponent has, which can also mean that it can also be the effects of potentially a Boral Sword Dragon, or even also Saryuja Skull Dread if possible. Then of course the Grand Mole is basically basically a double compulse where where at the start of the damage step, if this card battled one of your opponent's monsters, both this card and your opponent's monsters go back to the hand. So again, it's pretty much a double compulse. Air Hummingbird basically just giving you extra life points for each card in your opponent's hand. 500 for each. Not too shabby. Aqua Dolphin, really awesome card. Basically, you're able to look at your opponent's hand by discarding a card from your hand for cost, and select one monster that you control with an attack greater than or equal to the attack of the chosen card. Destroy the card, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Otherwise, if it's lower than the monster that you selected, you get dealt 500 damage instead. Flare Scarab, this card really does nothing, but I added this in here as fusion fodder for Cosmo Neos. And then of course the Glow Neos, which can actually mean a negate attack if your opponent draws the right card. For the spells we have Space Gift. This is basically one of the two main draw cards you're going to be one of the two main draw spells you're going to have in this deck. Basically what the card does is you're able to draw a card for each Neospatian with a different name that you control. So if you have 5 Neospatians, like say Dark Panther, Air Neos, Air Hummingbird, let's say Dark Panther, Air Hummingbird, Glow Moss, Aqua Dolphin, and let's say I'll say Flare Scarab. Let's say that you're basically drawing 5 cards. That's it. That's it. So you can draw basically up to 5 cards, which can help you winning games. This is basically one of the cards that you need to have in the deck. And then for the polymerization like cards, we have 3 copies of Neos Fusion. This card basically helps you get into Brave Neos, Storm Neos, Rainbow Neos as well. Really, really good. Polymerization mainly used to summon Absolute Zero if you do have like say Shadow Mist and I'll say Liquid Soldier. You're good. You're pretty much golden. And then 2 copies of Miracle Contact. What's cool about this is that this is basically a sort of like a Cyberload Fusion, so to speak. Where if you're not familiar with Cyberload Fusion, basically what that card does is you can target Cyber Dragon monsters, or I guess like light machines that are on your field or that are banished. You put them back into the deck, and you're able to fusion summon whatever is there. So if you put 2 Cyber Dragons back into the deck from the banish pile, you can summon a Cyber Twin Dragon. With this, if you have this and say Neospace on the field, you can send Neos and I'll say Golmos and Dark Panther. You can summon Chaos Neos right off the bat with this card, so it's really, really good. Miracle Fusion is basically the Overload Fusion, but for heroes. So you're able to special summon a Elemental Hero Fusion by banishing the materials needed for its summon. And then 2 copies of Convert Contact. This is a weird one. This is a weird card, but what this card does is if you control no monsters, send 2 Neospatian monsters, 1 for your hand, 1 for your deck to the grave, and then draw 2 cards. So it's basically a sorry guys, I apologize if I was looking this way, but I was actually on my Fire Stick. It's basically a -2/+2. Not sure. I don't really think that's wise, unless if you opened with this card and a Neospatian, but it can actually help you with Neospace Connector. So if you open up with Connector, one of the Neospatians and this card Convert Contact, you go Convert Contact, send Flare Scarab and Dark Panther to the graveyard, get your +2 out, normal summon the Neospace Connector, resummon back the Dark Panther, activate, and if you drew out Neos and Neospace, you activate Neospace, then activate Miracle Contact, send Dark Panther and Neos back into the deck, and you can summon Dark Neos right off the bat. So I mean, it's not too bad, but still I don't think Convert Contact is as good as Space gives. 1 copy of Monster Reborn, pretty much to revive any of your monsters to go into more of your fusion plays. And now for the reason why. And now for the one card that I had mentioned that involving Aqua Dolphin summoning, going into Acid. Here's why. First up, I have Mass Change. Mass Change, you send one of your heroes to the graveyard, and you can summon a Mass Hero. This card, on the other hand, pretty much gives you a Mass Hero using the Neospatians. Mask Change 2. Yes, Mask Change 2. If you guys don't know what this card does, the effect says discard 1 card, then target 1 face-up monster you control that has a level. Send it to the graveyard. After that, if it left the field by this effect, Special summon from your extra deck one master hero with the same attribute but a higher level than the attribute than the attribute or level the monster had when it was on the field. Its original attribute level if face down. This is treated as a special summon with match change. You can only activate one match change 2 per turn. So basically, what you do is if you're going into acid and your opponent has a bunch of cards in their back row and a field spell, you go match change 2. You go normal summon the Neospatian Aqua Dolphin. Activate match change 2. Pitch a card. You know, I'll say Shadow Mist. Shadow Mist effect will then activate as Chainlink 2, so Shadow Mist would be able to resolve. You get out Stratos from the deck. Match Change 2's effect would resolve. You send Aqua Dolphin to the grave. You summon Master Hero Acid. Acid's effect activates, and your opponent's back row is pretty much destroyed. And once that happens, all monsters that your opponent controls will lose 300 attack right off the bat. So this card, so Match Change 2, comboed off, going into a card like Master Hero Acid could really help the deck out a lot. I didn't realize it because I was testing this a lot over the last the last month or so, and I realized that you're running Neospatians each with a different attribute. Match Change 2 doesn't need any of the heroes. It can use the Neospatians to go into something like Acid. So how could I not pass up running Match Change 2? I'm actually running 3 copies of each, by the way. And then for the last of spells, we had three copies of Neospace, mainly again for the Neos fusions, and then the one Skyscraper 2 Hero City. The reason why I'm running this card is because it's another form of Monster Reborn. So if one of your heroes was destroyed by battle, basically you can just special summon it. So if Stratos was special summoned if Stratos was destroyed by battle, you can activate Skyscraper 2 Hero City, special summon Stratos back from the graveyard, and then get its search. So that's another one of the big reasons why I was running this at only 2. And then the only traps that are in the main deck are 3 copies of Next. This was released, I believe, in Savage Strike, if I remember correctly. But what this card does is it says special summon any number of monsters with different names from your hand or grave in defense position that are all Neospatian or Elemental Hero Neos, but negate their effects. As long as you control any of those special summon monsters face up, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except fusion monsters. You can only activate 1 Next per turn. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. So it can be so you can activate it from the field face down, or you can use it as a hand trap, which is really, really good. For the extra deck, we have the one Cosmo Neos. This card is really good. So this card requires Neos and 3 Neospatians with different attributes. And it says must first be special summoned from your deck from your extra deck by shuffling. Must first be special summoned from your extra deck by shuffling the above cards you control into the deck. You don't need polymerization. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can activate this effect. For the rest of this turn, your opponent cannot activate cards. Also, cards your opponent controls. Sorry guys, my legs are going numb. Your opponent cannot activate cards. Also, cards your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. Your opponent cannot activate card effects or effects in response to this effect's activation. Once returned during the end phase, shuffle this card into the deck, and if you do, destroy all cards your opponent controls. So, do you need Neospace for this? Yes and no. Yes, because you really don't want to put this card back into the extra deck, yet at the same time, it's a board wipe. So why would you not want to keep send it back. Why wouldn't you want to send it back to the extra deck? But it is a 3500 beat stick on board, so it's actually not too bad. Now for the one copy of Rainbow Neos, I really don't have to explain what this card does. This card has 3 different effects. You can send a monster you control to the grave. All monsters your opponent controls go back into the deck. You can send a spell or trap you control to the grave. The back row goes back into the deck. Or you can send a card from the top of your deck to the grave, and all cards in your opponent's graveyard go back into the deck. Obviously, you're going to want to send a monster and a spell or trap you control to the grave, and their whole board is gone, basically. So that's why this card is really, really good. Chaos Neos, because this card can actually do a lot of good. Because it says, once per turn during the end phase, shuffle this card into the extra deck, and if you do, set all face-up monsters on the field. Once per turn during your main phase, you can toss a coin 3 times. If you get 3 heads, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. 2 heads, for the rest of this turn, the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls are negated. 1 head, return all monsters you control to the hand. So you're going to want to try and have 3 heads as much as possible, because if you do, you can destroy all the monsters that your opponent has on the field. So this card is really good, and it's a 3,000 body on board. In fact, I think aside from Cosmo Neos, Chaos Neos, this next one that I'm going to talk about here in a second, Nebula Neos, and then of course Storm Neos are all 3,000 bodies on board. Now for Chaos Neos, which obviously which requires which obviously requires Neos, and of course Grand Mole and Dark Panther. If this card is special summoned from the extra deck, draw cards equal to the number of cards your opponent controls. Yeah, that's just pretty much it. You're basically drawing more cards from your deck, which is really, really crazy. Then negate the effects of one face-up card on the field until the end of this turn. Once returned during the end phase, shuffle this card into the extra deck, and if you do, banish all cards on the field face down. That's a pretty broken effect. The only downside is that you're doing that to yourself as well. So you want to try and not put it back into the extra deck. Then of course we have I believe that is Nebula Neos, actually. Sorry, that's Nebula Neos. And then for Storm Neos is kind of weird, because it says, once per turn, you can destroy all spells and traps on the field, and then during the end phase, shuffle this card into the deck. When this card is shuffled into the extra deck, this way, shuffle all cards on the field into the deck. It's kind of a weird one, because with this one, not only does it reset the back row, not only does it reset the back row, by that I mean completely switch up, like take all the cards in the back row and send them into the graveyard. With this effect, it prevents your opponent from activating those cards. So unless if they had something like Solemn Judgment or Solemn Strike or whatever, or even also Bottomless Trap Hole, which is another one that can also ruin this card. I have no words for it, honestly. But the other effect is kind of weird, because it says, when this card is shuffled into the deck this way, into the extra deck, shuffle all cards on the field into the deck. It's basically another form of Fiber Jar. The only downside is that it's not a draw card. That's the only thing. And then for the Mass Heroes, we have Mass Hero Diane. Because that this is an Earth attribute, you're gonna want to use either a Grand Mole or even Solid Soldier to summon Mass Hero Diane. But basically, when it destroys a monster and opponent's monster in battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon a hero, a level 4 or lower hero from your deck, which could obviously mean Stratos. It could mean Shadow Mist, which you can get Mass Change out, and obviously go into potentially Dark Law, or even also Divine Wind, which is actually the next one that I'm going to talk about. So with Divine Wind, it's interesting because because this card cannot be destroyed by battle, which is insane. Your opponent can only attack with one monster during each battle phase. So with this, it's basically the Dark Door with legs. And when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the grave, you get to draw a card. You're drawing cards. Your opponent can only attack with one monster, and it can't be destroyed. It's a protection card. How could this card not be broken? And then of course, Mass Hero Asset. I had just explained it earlier. Basically, it's basically Harpy's Feather Duster with legs. So pretty broken, pretty broken. And also dealing your opponent's monsters 300 points of damage. Yeah, pretty crazy. Then the one copy of Absolute Zero. This is kind of a cool one because it says, no pun intended, because it's Absolute Zero. It's freezing. No pun intended. Gains 500 attack for each water monster on the field, except this card. If this card leaves the field, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Basically, it's a board wipe. It's another form of. It's basically another board wipe of sorts. Next up, we have Air Neos, which is actually a pretty cool one, because it says this card can only be special summoned from the extra by returning the above cards you control to the deck. You don't use Poly. While your life points are lower than your opponent's, this card gains attack equal to the difference. Yeah. And what's funny, and what I find so stupid, is the fact that this card has yet to be reprinted. Never been reprinted, not once. We need a reprint, Konami. We need a reprint of Air Neos. And then, of course, Dark Neos. Basically it says if this card is not already targeting a monster with its effect, you can target a face-up effect monster on the field. While you control this face-up card, that target's effect on the field is negated. Basically, it's basically a different version of Imperm, basically. Next up, we have Grand Neos, which is basically a compulsory evacuation device. It just jumps monsters your opponent controls back into the hand. Brave Neos, because it is a search for cards for pretty much any card that has Neos in its name. So it could be Neos Fusion, it could be Miracle Contact, it could be Next, or it can even also be Neo Space also. And then of course Mass Hero Dark Law. It's basically a banish. It's basically called by the grave with legs. Any card that your opponent sends to the graveyard is basically banished, and if your opponent adds cards from their deck to their hand, except during the draw phase or the damage step, you can banish one random card from your opponent's hand. It's just that good. And then of course the one copy of Verde Anaconda going into Rainbow Neos just right off the bat is absolutely insane. So that's pretty much it for the main and extra deck. For the side deck, this is my personal preference anyway. But obviously you guys can use pretty much anything at this point. So for the side deck, we have the 3 copies of Ash Blossom. You want to try and maximize your opponent from not having draw cards or anything like that. Special summon, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. So that's why I'm actually running 3 copies of Ash Blossom. The second copy of Verde Anaconda, I may end up taking the Sal, and also the two Dark Ruler No Mores, and I might replace it with Void Ogre Dragon and Double Waking the Dragon, because with Void Ogre Dragon, it's basically Void Ogre Dragon is basically a Solemn Judgment, so I don't really have to explain. The one Harpy's Feather Duster, self-explanatory. Dark Ruler No More, it is good. It is a pretty good card because it negates the effects of all monsters, all face-up monsters your opponent controls, until the end of the turn. And But the only downside is that your opponent doesn't take any damage, so why would you want to play that card? So I might have to take them out and replace them with something like potentially waking the dragon, which honestly, waking the dragon is actually really good. Being able to just summon a monster, any monster from your main deck or your extra deck, like right off the bat, is just absolutely crazy. And then of course, to the one copy of Call by the Grave, I still don't know why this card is at 1. That's probably the most stupidest thing Konami's ever done. But being able to prevent your opponent from activating hand traps is just really good. 2 copies now for the trap cards. We have 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. It's self-explanatory. Don't have to explain. 2 copies of a very old card called Zing Zang Hu. If you guys do not know what Zing Zang Hu does, basically you activate this card by selecting 2 set spell or traps on the field. It could be yours or your opponent's. Neither of those 2 cards can be activated. It's an old floodgate that can still be used in today's meta. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And then 3 copies of Solemn Strike. I don't have to explain anything about it. You just pay 1,500 life points. You negate this. You negate the special summon of one of your opponent's monsters or the activation of your opponent's effects. You basically just destroy it. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. So, guys, that is going to do it for this video. If you guys want to see the deck, I'll be posting it on my Instagram a little over an hour after this video gets posted. So make sure you guys subscribe. Not subscribe. Make sure you guys do follow me on Instagram. My link is. The link is down in the description, and that is going to do it for this deck profile. What are you guys' thoughts on this deck on this deck? What are some of the cards I should take out? What should I put in? Let me know in the comments. I'm very curious, and that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel, you guys want more deck profiles in the foreseeable future, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be down in the description below. And if you guys have any fan mail that you want to send me and want me to open up on the channel, my address will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.